Hey strawberries, Sir Strawberry here. Now, I know this video is very sudden, but I know I've mentioned some TGA AUs in some of my videos. I haven't really described them or made full-on videos about them, but let's take a moment and talk about the TGA AUs and what their meanings are. So, for TGA immunity, it started off mainly as just a concept. It's one of the zombie apocalypse alternate universes, and originally it was just a little fun side thing to the original zombie apocalypse AUs. But I mean, it's still being developed and all, but more I dove deeper into this, I've been giving it a lot more purpose. So, in this AU, Richard and Stella are, like, somewhat adults. Richard was in college. He's basically trying to get enough money for his family to have a home and stuff. But then, during the time, he's also being bullied. And while he's handling all this, the zombie apocalypse ends up beginning. Unfortunately for Stella ended up being one of the test subjects of the people that started the apocalypse. She was able to read and write, though, because she was one of the first successful ones, and she managed to escape before more testing was done on her. So they both end up reuniting, and Richard ends up finding out that Stella is a zombie, and it breaks his heart, as of course he's in love with her. But then later on, they end up revisiting the abandoned lab that Stella escaped from. And, well, Richard ends up finding 2 vials. He's already losing his mind because he hasn't reunited with his family in a while. And one of those vials causes him to lose his sanity a bit easier, basically making him a bit more hostile. And this other one makes him forget things a bit easier. Now in this AU, Richard is immune to the infection, which explains why he doesn't become a zombie. He ends up getting attacked multiple times and stuff like that. They end up writing notes to each other and having journals. Richard ends up making recordings on the camera because he wants to keep track of things. But of course, when he starts forgetting things a bit easier, this makes Stella mad, that finding out that he drank vials with the infection. But this just leads Richard to be more confused and lost. And the way he describes it is like looking into a broken mirror, trying to remember who it is in the mirror, but every time he looks into the mirror ends up instantly shattering, as if trying to prevent him from remembering who he is. That's somewhat like going through a trauma that has hurt you a lot and trying to forget about it, but also trying to help others, but getting lost along the way, somewhat forgetting who you are. That's basically what the meaning of it is so far. Basically, being traumatized enough by so much things and getting so lost with helping others that you start forgetting who you are. And when you try to, you can't fully remember. It's like looking at a recognizable, it's like looking at an unrecognizable face, but recognizing it, but not fully recognizing it. It's like you know who it is, but at the same time, you don't know who it is. You've seen the person before, but you don't know who they actually are. That's basically the meaning of that AU. At least, so far, that's what it's been. It's really upsetting, looking at it that way, but as sad as it is, it's just that way. Now, as for TGA Tektron, I haven't fully thought of what to do with this one, but what I planned so far, this is one I plan to make as like a remake of one that got abandoned. But basically this one, it's where Stella and Richard are teenagers and they're going through an abandoned laboratory, or they thought it was abandoned, and eventually someone ends up capturing Stella, and the person also ends up grabbing Richard. And Richard ends up fighting back, but part of his body ends up getting burnt, but he still is alive. But his body is horribly damaged. And turns out that when Stella's given back, the people that captured her ended up injecting something into her system that makes her behave differently. And so over time she ends up acting different, and Richard is noticing it. But after a while, Richard decides it's finally time that he handles the burns on his body. And so he goes to see someone and gets turned into a cyborg. But sadly, the cyborg hasn't been fully created. The cyborg side of him. So there would be regular malfunctions, and he'd be having a harder time processing things. So Stella would have to explain to him some things so he could understand. While some parts, or sometimes, Stella ends up wreaking havoc onto people. I don't know if that's the right word I'm supposed to be using, but basically causing mayhem. I don't know if that's what wreaking havoc is. I haven't learned about that, sorry. But she ends up basically causing mayhem and bringing it onto other people, while Richard is trying to help her calm down and stuff. Basically, the meaning of it so far is like somewhat of like one person having a harder time understanding things, while another person is like having huge anger issues and stuff. They can't really control it as well, even if they try to. And so the person not understanding as much at least wants to help the person, even if they don't understand what they're going through. And I mean, it's not fully what I'm going with so far, but I'm somewhat going with that. It's like something similar to the older version of it, like the abandoned version, but not exactly the same. It's like with a different meaning to it. But, yeah, that's basically how I plan for it. I feel like this video is long enough as it is, just explaining to AUs. So, I'm just gonna split this up into different parts to help explain some other AUs and stuff. I mean, there's other ones I've already, like, have things to remake for them, or, like, they're already finished and stuff like that, but, like, this video is already quite long. But, I mean, I know a bunch of those AUs and how I described them are extremely upsetting. And they can also be relatable, but I don't know why. It's just how I have plans for things. It's just how it ends up being. But, yeah, so I'll be putting this into different parts. If you want a part 2, let me know in the comments, or just tell me on Discord, because if you know me on Discord, just tell me about it, because I don't really have people commenting much about it, but whatever. Anyways, be on the lookout for Pig 64 and Doors Part 3. Anyways, I'll see you in the next video. Bye, my strawberries!